Imagine the physical sensation of starving or dying of thirst. Now compare those physiological states to sitting completely alone on a bench in the middle of a crowded city. We usually treat loneliness as a feeling, a bad mood, or a personality quirk. But biologically speaking, it is an alarm bell. It is an evolutionary warning system designed to prevent your physical body from breaking down, triggering the exact same circuitry as hunger or thirst. Which brings us to a bizarre modern paradox. We live in an era where we can instantly reach anyone on Earth, swarming together in massive urban centers. Yet we are experiencing record-breaking levels of profound isolation. This disconnect happens because we've lost track of what our bodies actually require. Modern society has completely misunderstood the biological definition of what belonging actually is. In 1995, psychologists Baumeister and Leary published the belongingness hypothesis. Satisfying our biological drive requires two variables. First, frequent, pleasant interactions. But frequency isn't enough. Interactions must take place within a temporally stable framework of affective concern, an ongoing bond of care. Look at how modern life delivers on this equation. Gig work, transient living, and endless scrolling give us maximum interaction frequency. We see thousands of faces a day. But that second variable, stability, remains entirely empty. Consuming high-frequency digital interactions without any stable care is the equivalent of drinking salt water. It fills your stomach, but leaves your biological thirst completely unquenched. To understand why this equation is so rigid, we have to look at our ancestors. Human biology evolved in ancestral environments where group connection was the only viable survival strategy. Facing predators, finding food, and surviving extreme weather alone meant certain death. Shared labor and collective protection were absolute requirements to stay alive. Because isolation was so lethal, evolution engineered a powerful deterrent. The human brain adapted to process social rejection using the exact same neural pathways that process physical pain. This evolutionary crucible hardwired social bonds into the human species across every culture on Earth as an inescapable biological necessity. Our modern bodies still run on this ancient survival hardware. When you lack stable social connection, your nervous system interprets the isolation as an immediate mortal threat. Without a stable tribe, your nervous system is essentially trapped in a state of chronic, low-grade stress. Clinical data backs this up. People who lack supportive bonds suffer severe drops in immune system function. Researchers even found that bad, unsupportive marriages degrade cellular immune function and increase illness rates worse than being entirely alone. A century ago, sociologist Emil Durkheim demonstrated that a failure of social integration reliably and predictably causes suicide rates to spike among isolated populations. This chart visualizes modern mortality risk factors, and you can see social isolation towering significantly higher as a predictor of early death than obesity or a lack of physical exercise. Failing to balance the belonging equation literally breaks down our cellular health, and it measurably shortens our lifespans. Because belonging is a core biological drive, it operates by measurable rules. We can manipulate those rules to heal ourselves. First is satiation. You don't need endless popularity, just a finite number of stable bonds to satisfy your biological system. Second is substitution. Losing an anchor causes biological panic, but psychological data shows bonds are interchangeable. The fastest recovery is establishing a new anchor quickly. We have to stop exhausting our energy on massive, shallow networking. The goal is entirely about maintaining and replacing a few deep, reliable anchors. The third remedy relies on intentional identity. Humans evolve to cooperate and form bonds when they feel like part of a defined we. To jumpstart this process, you have to actively place yourself in recurring, shared interest environments. Join an intramural sports league, a local club, or a community group. This manually satisfies the first variable, frequent interaction. By continually showing up to these shared spaces, the repetition naturally cultivates the second variable. Over time, that frequency solidifies into stable, affective concern. Interpersonal connection is not a luxury, it is not a mood, and it has nothing to do with whether you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert. It is a harsh biological imperative. You must treat your need to belong with the exact same life or death reverence that you apply to your diet, your sleep, and your physical exercise.